Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It is Friday, February 7th. The year is already flying by. Wasn't it just New Year's yesterday? At any rate, I am a sales coach and trainer. I work with individuals and organizations to help increase their sales. And I founded the Sales Pro Network to elevate the profession of sales. And every Friday, if you've joined us before, you know I either do a live training or I bring you someone who can add value to the profession of sales. And once again, my friends, today is no exception. Today's guest is an international speaker, an author, and a mindset coach. And we'll find out why mindset is important in sales in just a moment. Please welcome today's guest, Cornell Thomas. Good morning, Cornell.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me, my friend.
I'm excited to speak with you because in my coaching practice, I always talk about I'm going to help you with two things. I'm going to help you with your skills and your techniques and your tools, but 50% I work on is what's between the brains. But you're the expert in that, so we'll get to that in a minute. Before we get to the 8,000,001 questions I have for you, could you maybe give us the 2 to 3 minute version of your background?
Sure. I'm originally from Passaic, New Jersey. I am the son of Bobby and Tina Thomas. My father, Bobby, was a police officer in Passaic, New Jersey. He passed away when I was about 4 years old. And when he passed away, my mom ended up having to raise 5 of us by herself with very little money. So a lot of my mindset and how I approach life is from my mom, Tina Thomas. I have 5 brothers, some half, some biological, and then I have a sister, a full blood sister, and one of my brothers on the spectrum. So every single day it was a battle for my mom to try to figure out how to get us fed, how to get us off to school. And she did this by working 3 jobs and taking care of all of us. So whenever I go and I speak to companies and corporations, I say, whatever I'm going through, it pales in comparison to what my mom went through. And not to diminish that, what I'm going through, but to look at it in terms of there are people going through stuff on a daily basis that is way bigger, way more extreme than we could even fathom. So why not get through this thing, put it in your rearview mirror, and just keep moving forward? And that's the mindset I adapted when I started playing basketball late in life at 16 years old. And I was god awful at basketball when I first started playing. And all I did was just train every single day. Basketball is my therapist. All the things that I didn't have the time to address when I was younger, I did it through basketball. So I ended up working in 7 years, going from never playing basketball to getting a professional contract to playing to play in Europe. And then life, came back again, and I got a career-ending injury a week before I was supposed to go. So when I talk about mindset, I'm always like, I've never forgotten the adversities that I've been through to this point. And that helps me get to the next one, because that's what life is, right? It's just like in terms of sales, you can have 5 amazing yeses and 5,000 no's right off the back of those 5 yeses. And if you're not looking at your wins that you had and understanding like, no, I can do this, I've done this before, then every no is going to seem like it's a catastrophe.
So first of all, I hope that salespeople's numbers are slightly better than 5 yeses and 5,000 no's. But you're 1,000,000% right, and I have this conversation regularly. I'm not a big fan of numbers and mathematics. It was never my strength, but my previous boss, before I opened up my own consultancy, taught me the importance of knowing my metrics. And let's say you have a 20% closing ratio, and I'm just picking that off the top of my head. That means 1 out of every 5 people are going to say yes, but 4 are going to say no. And I often tell both audiences and people I'm working with that, look, I'm so good at selling that I'm an expert. People pay me to teach them how to sell, but I don't close everybody. In fact, more people say no to me than say yes. And part of it is having the mindset, which I want to talk to you about today, that knowing that even though this person or these 5 or these 50,000 people said no, my job is how do I keep going so that I can find the people who are going to say yes, serve them, and do exactly that. So certainly mindset is important in every aspect of life, but certainly it's crucial in sales. Can you expand a little bit on why is mindset so important in life and in sales?
Yeah. So I'll just use a coaching analogy for us. When I was coaching basketball, I would tell my guys all the time, next play, have a next play mentality. Because if you miss a shot and 4 minutes later, you're still worried about the shot that you missed, you're not going to make the next opportunity, right? So basketball is such a transitional sport where you're going from offense to defense. There's always something else for you to concentrate on that's positive. So if I miss a shot, now I can go play defense. Or next time I get the ball, I can make the next assist. It's the same exact thing in sales, right? If you're not in the next play mentality, you're going to be stuck in that sale, right? You're going to that sale that you didn't have. Okay. And another thing I tell my guys is like, don't take it personal, right? Like if your shot's off and someone says, "Hey man, you got the next one," or whatever, stop taking it personal. I think for me, being a speaker and going to corporations and pitching my program, I'm not, when someone says no, I just say they're saying no to an opportunity right now. It doesn't mean no forever. I've had people contact me 5 years later and say, "Hey, can you come back and do that?" 100%. It's never a personal thing like, "Hey, I hate Cornell Thomas, and that's why I don't want you to come and speak to my company right now." No, it's just, it might not be the right timing. So for basketball and life, for me, it's just, there's so many parallels to it, and it goes right to selling. So I would say detach yourself away from the sale, right? Just don't put yourself in the sale. Like, "Oh, I'm saying I don't like Jeff." No, I'm not ready for the opportunity. And also say next play mentality whenever you come up with rejection, because your analogy in terms of your numbers, but look at a baseball player. If you hit 300 in the major leagues, you're an all-star. That means you've missed 70% of the pitches that have come your way. You're an all-star. Now in the NBA, if you shoot 38% from the three-point line, you're going to make millions of dollars. 38%, right? So I look at it that way, and that always gives me the energy to continue to push towards the next one.
Yeah, we do tend to focus on the past too much. I do go against the traditional thinking, which is what you just said, which is don't take it personally. I always suggest that salespeople, you should take it personally. But not, like you said, it's not I hate Jeff. It's I don't like what Jeff is telling me, or I have no need for it right now, or whatever it is. And I think that if we don't at least somewhat take it personally, that we're also giving away our responsibility. And maybe I should say it differently. Maybe it's not take it personally, but do take responsibility. There was something you said or didn't say or did or didn't do that did not help this particular prospect to choose to do business with you right now. But like you, I have had way more than one person who I met 5 years ago call me up out of nowhere and go, "Hey, you know what? I met you 5 years ago and I wasn't ready then, but I'm ready now." No today does not mean no forever. Brilliant. Yes, you offer a 3-month course on storytelling called Get in the Game. Now, the reason I'm so fascinated by that is because I believe that salespeople need to be great storytellers. And there are a couple of different types of stories that I think salespeople need to tell. One is painting a picture in your prospect's mind of them already having your product or service, so that they're feeling the warmth and the glow and the benefit and all that stuff of already having it. That helps them get past the negative brain science thinking, which is, I'm afraid to make a mistake. And that's the second kind of story salespeople have to tell. I call that a verbal truth story. Other people call it a verbal proof story. And that's a story about somebody else like you who chose to do business with me and lived happily ever after. And again, the reason for that is the way brain science works, and this isn't good or bad or right or wrong. It's just that when the brain is making a buying decision, we think of the negative stuff first. What if I hire Cornell to come in and talk to my people and sales don't go up, or they're not happy or whatever? What if I hire Jeff and sales don't increase? I promise you, Cornell, nobody's hiring me for my good looks. People hire me because they want their sales to go up. So there's that negative thinking. We do have to be great storytellers. So what are some of your best tips for being a better storyteller?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is stop making it so transactional and make it more into a conversation. So if me and you are meeting for the first time and you're telling me this great story about where you're from in your life, and you can see my setup from a mile away, you know that I'm going to pitch you something at the very end. That's transactional. It's not a story. You're just setting me up. It's like seeing a comedian and you know the joke is coming, right? At no point are you going to enjoy yourself, right? So I would say the main thing is be conversational. Actually care about the person that you're talking to. And how do you care about the person you're talking to? You shut up for a little bit and you listen. And now my story is going to adjust off of what Jeff says to me. If I'm just steamrolling the conversation and not adjusting to what Jeff is saying to me, then I'm not going to be able to tell a story, or I'm not going to be engaging, or the person's going to just shut me down right away because they're like, okay, all you want is this. You don't want anything else. I love going back to people and saying, how did your son's baseball game turn out? I love stuff like that. And they're just like, how did you remember my son had a baseball game when I met with you? Well, I'm paying attention, I'm listening, and I'm shutting up, right? So I think a part of being a great storyteller is, one, being able to have the ability to listen and care enough so you can retort what you just heard to the person within your own story and what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's about the audience, not about you. Too many speakers and storytellers. It's all about, and you're certainly, we tell stories about ourselves, but if the focus is, look at me, look at what I did, look at how great I am, nobody wants to hear that. What they want to hear is what's in it for me. So how do we take our story and make it useful for the prospect in a way that they go, aha, I get it. And high ticket coaching Christian mom says relationship and connection over transactions and bodies and seats. Well said. I like your name, high ticket coaching Christian moms in sales. I'm betting this beautiful lady has another name, but and she also says connect and listen, give a darn. Well said. Exactly right. Why are we as human beings afraid or so challenged by having hard conversations?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is we're humans, right? Being a human comes with fear. I never, the disconnect from that just boggles my mind, right? Like you're going to have fear. You're going to have doubt. It doesn't matter what motivational speaker you sat in front of today that told you, oh, you can't, no fear and blah, blah. That's awesome. But when you are a human being on this earth, you're going to have fear and doubt. Why? Because there are beliefs and ideals that that have been programmed into our minds since we were little by our parents and by our kids and so by our teachers and peers, etc. So sometimes these societal norms and all these things are like just in our subconscious. So we're afraid of things that we're like, we don't even know. Like, why would I be afraid of that? Like, I've never been there before. So I always tell people it's not the absence of fear, right? Like fear for me is fuel. I love it. Like I love the fact that I'm going after something that makes me a little bit like, oh, does that make me I get a little tingle in my stomach, right? I chase after that because if I don't, that means I don't care about it. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jeff, what'd you say?
Get your heart pounding.
Yeah. But I chase after that. So it's not the fact of like having fear or having no fear. It's being able to move forward despite that. Yes. And if I can move forward despite that, then that's where the money comes from, right? Like that's the money right there. So I can move forward despite feeling it and be able to articulate the point that I'm trying to say. Because what does fear do? Your mouth gets dry, your feet get heavy. I'm in front of thousands of people speaking, and people are like, aren't you nervous? And aren't you? No, I'm excited. I'm excited because it's not about Cornell. It's like, to your point, Jeff, it's about all those thousands of people in the audience. I can't wait to have this conversation. And if someone in that audience is like, I hate this guy, it doesn't matter. The earth is still going to spin, right? As long as that one person gets the message, then I'm good to go. So that's the way I approach, fear for me. And I actively do things in my life that are fearful. Like I started taking Brazilian jiu-jitsu 18 years ago, right? Like there's all these things that I do, like where I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to put myself I took improv, 7 years ago, started taking improv. I'm like, I'm going to just do these things where I feel that pit in my stomach and go right through it.
Yeah, I'm with you 1,000,000%. Fear is fine. Just don't let it stop you. I mean, fear is look, if a tiger has escaped from the zoo and is running down your block, it's pretty appropriate to be afraid because I don't want to get eaten by a tiger or bit by a tiger. But the key is don't let fear stop you. I was very active in an organization that used to be called EST and is now called the Landmark Forum. For 10 years, I worked with these people. It's a self-improvement kind of program. And one of the many, many things I got out of working with those people for so long was that I don't know if kids today would understand this, but in old style cartoons, you used to see a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other. And the devil is whispering in your ear, don't do that, don't do that. And what they taught me was just turn to the devil and go, thank you for sharing. Now I'm doing it anyways. And like you, I like to put myself in situations that get the heart pounding. You mentioned comedy. Yes, I do stand-up comedy on the side. Like I don't get enough attention during the week. People speak. I have to get more people. And I'm like you. I get excited before I go on stage, but most people do have butterflies. I went to a National Speakers Association convention one time and spoke to tons and tons of speakers, and almost to a person. Oh yeah, every time I'm being introduced, I have butterflies in my stomach. I'm like, really? I'm kind of like a racehorse on the side, waiting for them to open the gate because I want to have that conversation. What is this? February? I think it was August. Oh no, October. I went skydiving. I jumped out of an airplane. Now that's a pretty scary thing to do, even though I had done it once before about 30 years ago. When they open the door on an airplane and you're standing there with your toes hanging out and you're looking out, it's like, holy Moses, what am I about to do? But when you actually do it, the feeling of power is so incredible because, I've used that a million times in my life. Oh, I don't think I can do that. Wait a minute. I've jumped out of an airplane. I'm pretty sure I can ask that girl to dance or whatever it is. how do we get past the why me conversation when stuff doesn't go right? So many of us, it's like, why me? There's a million other, there's gazillions of other, trillions of people, billions of people at any rate. Why me? How do we get past that?
Yeah, and I can speak from direct experience. When I got injured before I was supposed to go play professional basketball, which was a dream I had for 7 years, my dream was to make enough money to help my mom stop struggling. So when I got injured, it hit me really hard, and I was in complete why me mode, as we are when life throws punches at us. Sometimes we're like, well, why is this happening? I do all, I'm a good person. I do these things right. And it wasn't until I reframed it to what now that it really got me out of it. Like, and I always tell people, replace your why me with what now. Same amount of words. What now is like, okay, this why me thing happened. Okay, whatever this thing, this adverse situation that happened. Okay, it sucks. I get it. But what are you going to do now? Because the problem with positivity and negativity, people don't understand, like, they both work the same way. They just need your momentum. That's all it is. Positive and negativity works the same way. Whatever you give momentum to, that's what you're going to get. So this adverse situation happened. You can make your bed in it. You can lay down for the rest of your whole entire life. And one thing, we both know people that one thing has happened. And for 5-6 years, it's the same story, right? Because they're still not why me. Well, why has this happened to me? So you have to reframe it. Your mind is a beautiful thing, right? You can just reframe it. Well, it's not why me. It's like, what now? I'm not going to forget that this happened because there's lessons in that. But what can I do now to get through this? Not past it, because you don't get past anything. It's always going to be here to get through.
Yeah, because there's no value in the why me. The value is, okay, given that, and it's not like, oh no, what now? It's like, oh, what now? What can I do to move past this, or how can I use that?
Actionable steps.
Got it. Okay. When I prepare for these interviews, I always do research, and I love coming across stuff, and I'm like, what's that? So what is and I hope I'm pronouncing it, what is the Ubuntu initiative?
Ubuntu. So Ubuntu, that's all right. Ubuntu is an African proverb, and it means I am because we are. And I got that I want to say it's like my 5th year of coaching college basketball. And we had a horrible season the year before. And I'm, pissed. And what are we going to do? And blah, 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 blah. And I went to a coach's clinic, and Doc Rivers, who was coaching the Celtics at that time, talked about Ubuntu. And he said, I am because we are, which means if me and you are in a village, Jeff, and I'm a multimillionaire and you don't have a penny to your pocket, that means the whole village is doing bad. Because if I am because you are, that means I would have to care enough to maybe not give you a fish, but I'm going to show you how to fish, right? So I thought that was a beautiful thing. So I added that. We made T-shirts for my college program and everything. It was Ubuntu. So we'd bring it in the huddle, and we'd say 1, 2, 3 pack with Wolf Pack, and 4, 5, 6 Ubuntu. And I said, whenever I see one of you guys, I want to see at least 2 of you guys, because we're a village together. And whatever one person goes through, we all go through. And I think if the world had that Ubuntu mindset, it'd be a way more peaceful, amazing place.
Yeah, we're certainly missing that today in the world, and definitely in our country. There's not a lot of let's take care of everybody right now. It's a confusing time, that's for sure. And high-ticking coaching Christian moms in sales said, what now was my mantra during a 10-year divorce? 10-year divorce? Oh my goodness. My coach whipped why me out of me. Outstanding. There was another phrase that I saw, and I think I have an idea of what this is, but I'd like to hear more about it. What is fatigue mindset, and how do we get past that?
Yeah, fatigue mindset. There's a quote that I saw when I was in college, and it says, fatigue makes a coward out of all of us. Fatigue makes a coward out of all of us. And I would wonder, like, when I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh, we're doing conditioning and sprints. Some of the toughest guys on the team would turn into the softest guys on the team because they felt that I can't go one more step. And then what would happen? Coach would blow the whistle. We'd go one more step. We would run. And then we get back to the baseline. And then when practice is over, you give your body a couple of hours, and now you're fine. Now it's like you never even worked out. So I think fatigue, and that could be, stress, anything that you're going through, doesn't have to be just physical fatigue. It just starts to play games with your mind, where it's like, I can't do this anymore. You see this big pile, like you have 1,000 people that you have to call, right? Sales is a volume game. I just can't do this anymore. I can't make another phone call. And then you make that other phone call. It's like, well, okay, I can make, I guess, 5 or 10 more. Well, I don't know. 5 minutes ago, you said you can't make one more phone call, right? And that's how fatigue works. Fatigue is a liar. Fatigue is going to make you think you don't have anything in the tank. when you 100% do.
Yeah. And I think it's also useful to have somebody like yourself, a coach that can help you with that. And I now have to figure out how to make a 12-minute story into 20 seconds. My mentor in the speaking and training business, brilliant speaker, great, amazing sales trainer, incredibly smart guy, one of the funniest human beings I know. His name is Steve Bookbinder. And to this day, I'm convinced that every word that comes out of my mouth when I'm working, I really just stole from him. At any rate, he was a competitive swimmer in college and still swims, not competitively, but does race and stuff. He'll go around Manhattan, and he swam the English Channel. At any rate, he tells a story, and it is a long story, which I'm going to make short, about when he was training in college. They used to do something called descending sets. And what you had to do was you had to swim a lap, and I think you had to swim 10 laps, but the thing was every lap had to be faster than the last one. And Steve talks about going through this training one day, and he starts out strong. This is a very long story, which I'm going to make short. By the fifth one, he's getting tired because he started out too fast. He realized it very quickly. Oh, no, I started out too fast. Every set has to be faster. By the fifth one, he's tired. By the seventh one, his arms are falling off, and he tells this story beautifully. At any rate, they have 30 seconds between each lap. So he's after the ninth lap, he's on the side of the pool, with his arms out, panting, and he's thinking, I can't do this. His coach walks over and goes, "Bookbinder, what's wrong?" And Steve says, "I started out too fast. I don't think I'm going to be able to go faster on this 10th one." And the coach, who knew how to motivate Steve, said, "Yeah, I didn't think so." And Steve found it inside himself, because that coach knew exactly what he knew. Steve is the kind of guy who doesn't want to hear, "I didn't think you could do it," and prove him wrong. So sometimes you have to depend on yourself, but sometimes it's useful to have somebody like you who goes, "You know what? You're right. I didn't think you could," or "Come on, team," or whatever it is.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah. It's much better when he tells, I promise. What do you mean when you talk about improving word economy? And again, I think I have an idea, but I'd love to hear about that. Improving word economy.
Yeah. So if I say to you, "Jeff, I'm going to the store," that shouldn't take 5 minutes. And a lot of times as a speaker and as a writer, there's so much fluff in between sentences and stories. So your word economy is, instead of saying, "Oh, well, then when I woke up, I had this and this and this and this," it's like, no, I went to the store, right? If I'm speaking in front of people, they're like, "Hey, get to the meat and potatoes." Like, your story is awesome, but get me to the meat and potatoes. You don't have to circle talk for 30 minutes and then the last 5 minutes give me value and then walk off the stage, right? Give me the value right away. So that's what word economy means.
Yeah. And by the way, something you said earlier, I didn't comment on it, but it's not funny if you know the punchline is coming. Yes, you're absolutely right. And we strive to not have you guess the joke before we do. And it's always kind of, when somebody yells out your punchline first, it's like, "Oh, that didn't go very well, did it?" It's why I happen to love a comedian named Anthony Jeselnik. You never see the punchline coming. He's just brilliant at that. Yeah, very dark humor. Yeah, he's definitely a taste not for everybody. But boy, oh boy, you never ever see. I saw him live about a year ago in an hour set. There was one joke where I said, "I think I know what the punchline is going to be." The rest was like, "How did he do that to me?" One of the things you do is you help people conquer the 10 most common fears of public speaking. I know Jerry Seinfeld used to do a bit about how most people's number one fear in life is speaking in public. Number 2 is death. And number 3 is getting bit by a snake. And his bit was, most people would rather get bit by a snake and die than speak in public. So what are some of the 10 fears that people have? Why are people so afraid of public speaking? And how can they get past those?
Well, for me, the biggest one is, what will people think and say? That's the biggest thing.
You're the only one who thinks that.
Yeah.
Will they love me?
Will they love me? Will they love me? Are they going to like me? Are they going to boo me? Are they going to throw tomato? Like, that's the first thing. It's like, why would people want to hear me speak? Why would I blah, blah, blah? The second thing is, am I prepared enough? Right? That's one of the big ones that I get a lot. Like, am I prepared? Because if you're not going there and speaking in front of people, you have no idea where it's going. That could be worse than death for most people, because you have no plan, there's nothing where you're going to go. And I think another thing is, well, how do I articulate this? Like, I've had speakers go on stage and they've done a 15, 20-minute set or whatever, and they stand right in this one spot. And it's like almost like the floor is hot lava. And they're just like, I'm not gonna, I can't move. And I'm like, you're so closed off and bottled up. How do you think the audience is perceiving that energy and that emotion, right? Like you're like this. So they're worried for you. Like, what is this person gonna be okay? Right. So I'd say that those are three really big ones. What are people gonna say or think? What do I have to say? How am I gonna articulate this? Right. And your movement and stage presence. People will see a Jeff Goldberg speak and say, man, Jeff, you go up there and you just blah, blah. Well, how long has Jeff been doing this for? Right? You've been doing this for a long freaking time, right? You can look at someone and say, oh, this person's great. No, but you haven't seen all the other years and years and years of practice and reps to get. When you see, like you talked about Anthony Jeselnik, you see him, he was just in Jersey not too long ago. And it's like, you see him and you're like, well, how does he do an hour set and remembers all these jokes and flow from all these? Well, he's worked this in like 7,000 clubs, right? That one joke that now you're hearing, he's worked that joke hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different reactions to give that to you. So a lot of times people don't realize the reps it takes to look like everything is comfortable and it's fine.
You could not be more right, my friend. When I first started in comedy about 3.5 years ago, the thing I got most often from people was, wow, you're so comfortable on the stage. Yeah, because I've been speaking on stages for 20 years. It's not like I just got up here tonight and was like, oh, yeah, I'm the greatest. So, yeah, there's a price to pay for everything, and you got to put in your reps. I love the way you said that. Nobody goes to the gym, lifts weights once and go, okay, that's it, I'm pumped. Takes a little bit more than that, right, Coach?
100%.
You also have a program designed specifically for students, which I was fascinated by, and it's called Lead from the Front. Kids today have to deal with so much. I'm just going to say shit. I mean, it's very different than the way I grew up. I mean, just look at social media alone. And I love social media, but it's causing all kinds of issues, including self-image for kids, believing that everybody else is rich and they're gorgeous and they're living wonderful lives of the rich and famous, except me. How do you empower young minds growing up with all that constant influx of beautiful images and thinking everybody else is skinny and beautiful and I'm not?
Yeah. Jeff, you hit the nail on the head. When I go into schools, a lot of people are like, man, Cornell, the companies have the most money. I'm like, cool. Schools have the most impact. I said, that's great. I said, I'll never stop speaking at schools. You don't see Tony Robbins and Gary Vee and all these guys aren't going to schools anymore, right? They're making billions of dollars or $250,000 to talk to you on the phone for 30 minutes, right? So, but for me, when I go into a school, it is a high touch program, which means this kid gets to sit in front of me and have this conversation about things like positive mindset and work ethic and time management and how not to compare yourself to someone else's highlight film. All these different things. Like I've been in schools, Jeff. I just had this conversation a couple of days ago. I've been in schools where I've had kids raise their hand, 800 kids in the gym and say, Mr. Thomas, what do you do when you have suicidal thoughts? Mr. Thomas, what are you doing when you're severely depressed? Mr. Thomas, what do you do if you're bullied every single day? Right? And the bullying doesn't stop. When we went to school, you might get bullied in school and get into a fight or whatever. Now, like to your point, now it's 24/7. Now it's all these anonymous accounts on social media. If I don't like Jeff Goldberg, I can make whatever I want up about Jeff Goldberg, and and there's no repercussions for me. I can say whatever I want, and you don't even know who I am, right? And somebody that might not know Jeff might be like, well, that Jeff guy, I mean, why would someone say it if it isn't true? Now imagine being a 15-year-old and a bunch of this stuff is going on. So these kids have a whole different set of problems they have to deal with. So my program's called Lead from the Front, and I equate it to like the Breakfast Club. So in my groups, it's volunteer. So it's not like we're just grabbing kids out. So you might have an athlete, you might have the theater kid, you might have the kid that's quiet, you might have the emo kid, and they're all in this group and we're all having these conversations. So my thinking is, when you get back to your school, when you get back to your class, you're with your friends and you see the emo kid walking down the street, or you see this person walking down the block, maybe you'll say, what's up with them instead of being a jerk. I mean, or if your friend says something mean, you're like, hey man, that's not cool. Like that's Jerry. Jerry's a good dude. Right. So I've been doing it now. We do it in high schools and now middle schools. We have 3 middle schools this year, and it's been awesome. It's been one of the most gratifying things that I've done to date.
It's great stuff. Yeah, when I was a kid, the big concern was, did the kids from the bad guys from the Catholic school nearby, are they going to be waiting outside when we get out? And can I run home fast enough to not get
Yeah.
beat up? But now
Yep.
it's constant, and I like what you said. You may not even know who it is. Everybody's got big balls on social media.
Mhm.
Everybody,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying everybody's bad, but there are many, many people who would never, ever say anything like that to your face for fear of getting, punched in the nose or something like that. But they got big balls on social media because
Yep.
there's, like you said, there's almost no repercussions.
Yep.
You have something else coming up, I think in June, maybe. I might be off on that. What is the Positivity Summit? I mean, I think I have an idea, but tell me a little bit about that.
So it's an event I started about 8 years ago, and I was a friend of mine asked me if I wanted to go to a Tony Robbins event, and I said, well, I can't sell my kidney today, so I cannot make it. It's like I don't have $10,000 laying around. And her and her husband were gracious enough because I was coaching her to give me a ticket. And the ticket was, I mean, that's a whole entire story. I'm not going to get into it. It's a big story. But anyway, so I go to this event, and as I'm sitting, I'm like, oh, event's cool, like, etc. But I'm like, the average ticket price was something around $3,500. So I'm like, this is only speaking to less than 1% of the population. So what if I did an event where it wasn't just me speaking? I had diverse speakers from everywhere. And we just shared stories. It wasn't like none of my speakers sell from stage, none of them. I'm like, if you have something, put it in the back, I'm going to sell it for you. I was like, all I want you to do is give me your story and your takeaway and connect with people. And my speakers stay in the audience. So my speakers, there's no hierarchy. You go to some of these events, it's like, you can't talk to the speakers because the speakers are blah, blah. Gives a crap. That's a human being, right? So like my speakers interact with the audience, and it's become this beautiful thing that we do. And we've done one in England, California, New York. We do a lot of them in New Jersey. And you see people coming together. And the one of the first exercises I do is they come in and I say, meet 5 people. They meet 5 people. And it takes me probably 2 or 3 minutes to get everybody back in their seats because everybody's engaging and talking. And I said, wait a second, real quick. Has anybody talked about politics or religion? Oh, no? Okay, cool. And everybody's having a great conversation? Okay, great. All right, everybody sit down. So I say, leave all your stuff, leave your cult outside the door. Come in here and just be a good human. So I love the event. Our next one is in June in Jersey. We're doing this place called the Ukrainian American Cultural Center. And it's just a phenomenal time.
Sounds terrific. And I don't want to get into a political conversation, and I don't know if this post was political, but just today you posted, if we put humanity first, cults will always come in second. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. My main thing at the end of the day, I have 2 kids. Bryce is 11 and Naya is 9. And me and my wife talked to them about 2 things. Being a good human when you leave the door, and representing the name on the back of your jersey, which is my last name, right? Just like I'm representing my father's name. So if you do those things, be a good human, be kind to people who are kind to you. I'm not Jesus Christ by no means. I do not say, hey, be kind to the kid that is calling you names and throwing rocks at you. I don't believe in that. I'm old school. I'm not from that era, right? My thing is be kind to the people that are kind to you. And another thing I always tell my kids is always question. Never accept information from your group or your cult that are saying, oh, well, we got to, like, there's people that love the Red Sox that can never say Derek Jeter was a good baseball player. There's people that love the Yankees that can never say Roger Clemens was a great baseball player, right? Which is nonsensical, right? It's crazy to think that way. But because they're so attached to a certain ideal, this day and age, we're attached to our color or our religion or our gender or blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, man, are you a good human? Like within a minute of talking to you, Jeff, I can see Jeff's a great human. I don't care what you freaking look like. It doesn't mean that I'm colorblind, because I'm not. It's stupid. When people say I'm colorblind, it makes no sense to me. I'm happy that I'm this color. You should be happy that you're your color. Like, don't be colorblind. Just don't make it the biggest problem, like the biggest part of Jeff or Cornell. It's like, I don't give a crap what you, I don't care if you're yellow with red stripes. If you're a good human, I can rock with you. If you're not a good human, I can't. So I think if we start looking at it like that, like, is this person a good human? Great, cool. We can have a conversation. The world would be a better place. We're just too busy fighting and with this wolf pack mentality where we have our group saying, aren't these people bad? Oh yeah, these. No, I'm a free thinker. I'm not I don't conform to these social norms. I do my own thing. So I think if we just looked at it like back in the days, I saw this way back in the days, I was on a plane flying to England, and for whatever reason, I guess just to purely embarrass myself, I started watching the Mr. Rogers documentary. And I had no idea that I was going to cry that much watching a documentary that was an hour and 15 minutes long. And at the end of the freaking, flight, because I started watching up, about 2 hours left, my eyes are, I'm just raining down tears. I'm like wiping my face. I'm looking around like, oh my gosh, what in the world is going on? But he's speaking in front of Congress and he's talking about how much funding he needs funding, right? And he's talking about the passion that he has for these kids. And I'm like, we have people like this walking the earth. Now, they're not the majority because you don't hear them. They're the silent minority, right? But we have people like this walking this earth. But the people that are the loudest and the most ignorant, those are the ones that you see on a daily basis. What does that tell you? Where you're getting your information from doesn't care about your mental health or your sanity. Because if they did, they'd be putting Fred Rogers on there. They'd be putting people like Jeff Goldberg on there. They'd be putting amazing human beings on there instead of the nonsense that you see.
Yeah, I hear you. And as you talked about crying on the airplane, I remember I was coming back from doing a gig in England, and I can't remember the name of the movie, but I watched a movie. I'm in the, it's one of those planes, like 9 seats across, and I'm right in the middle. And shoot, I forgot the name of it. It's a movie about a dog and a family, and at the end, the dog dies, and there's nothing I like more. I believe dogs are the best thing on the planet, literally.
Yes.
And I'm not crying when this movie's over. I'm bawling. I'm embarrassingly crying. But what it is.
It is what it is.
Pete Ekstrom says we should go political anyways. We're not going to do that.
Let's go, Peter.
Peter, we'll talk later, my friend.
Peter's like, start it up.
Peter knows me, and he knows I could absolutely go there, but I don't want to waste everybody's time, because we are living in a country where you either believe this way or the other way, and there's very little value until we can actually have a conversation without being, I'm right, no, I'm right, at any rate. You mentioned this earlier, and I was going to ask you about it. You are I hope I pronounced this right, a Renzo Gracie black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What's a Renzo Gracie black belt as opposed to another black belt? And how has studying Jiu-Jitsu affected your life and business? And I'm curious about that. Why do you say it's the art of human chess? I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah. So it's Renzo Gracie. Renzo Gracie came to America from Brazil probably 25 or so years, 30 years ago. And he started a school in New York City. It's on 30th and 7th. And I remember when I first learned what jiu-jitsu was, I was taking kickboxing my senior year of college. My coach didn't know because I was on full scholarship. So if he knew I was taking kickboxing, I probably might have lost the scholarship. And then when I got home, I was looking for some type of martial arts training, and I saw this sign. So I went to this place called Renzo Gracie Denville. My professor, George Cernak, he was like, have you ever trained jiu-jitsu before? I was like, I've done martial arts. And he goes, okay, well, I'm going to have you go with this kid here. This kid's like 16 years old, Jeff. I swear to you, look like freaking Harry Potter. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like 24 at the time. I'm like, I'm going to kill this kid. I'm 6'5", I'm 200. And this kid made me say, uncle, tap me out maybe about 30 times, right? Nicest kid, smiling. I mean, looked like he just came from a Quidditch game. And I get home and my wife goes, she goes, how did jiu-jitsu go? I said, I got tapped out by Harry Potter. Like Harry Potter tapped me out 30 times. She goes, well, what are you going to do? I was like, I'm freaking going back tomorrow, and I'm going to learn how to tap out Harry Potter, because this is so it's this jiu-jitsu isn't just like a bunch of meatheads, throwing each other around. There's a lot of strategy into it and leverage involved. It was created for a smaller person to defeat a bigger person by using techniques. So like arm bars and strangulations and things of that nature. And once I got in the door, I never left. I walked in there 18 years ago and I never left. It takes you it took me 8.5 years to get my black belt, but it usually takes around probably like 10, 11 years to get a black belt. So I always tell people, imagine sucking at something for, I don't know, 8 to 10 years, like not being great at something for 8 to 10 years and still sticking with it. So in terms of my business approach, jiu-jitsu really calms you down. And I think, like you were saying before, like people talk online because there's no fear of getting punched in the face. Once you study martial arts, you know what violence can do. So you're like, I don't ever want to be in those situations, because I never want to be in a situation where I end up in the hospital or someone else ends up in the hospital or whatever, unless I'm protecting my family. So it really calms you down. And you're just like, you know what? This really isn't that serious. Like Brazilians, like not to be stereotypical, but the Brazilians that were teaching jiu-jitsu, they classes 12 o'clock. They come at 12:30. Hey, brother, yes, let's go train. Like it's like nothing is like they're always like at the beach. It doesn't matter if it's snowing outside. They're always at the beach. So adapt to that mindset, not the punctuality, but adapt to the mindset of just being, hey, you know what? It's not that big a deal. Let's just relax and calm down. The earth is still going to spin at the end of the day. You're fine. Right. So I think it's and going through hard stuff because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is extremely hard. And there's days where I want to just drive past my school and go home. But I pull it to the parking lot anyway and I go train.
Got it. That's great. There was some advice you gave yesterday on, I think, LinkedIn, which I think is important, which the advice was just 2 words, and it was stay focused. In this attention economy, and this is an attention economy, there's no doubt about it, it's harder and harder to stay focused because we're getting blasted by messages from various platforms and people all day long. What tips do you have for people who maybe are challenged with finding their focus?
Yeah, I don't have it on me, but there's this thing called an iPhone or an Android. Learn how to learn how to turn it off. Right, like that's the first.
Mine's off because I don't want it making notifications and stuff.
Mine's in the other room, Jeff. Mine's in the other room. Learn how to turn it off. I know how important it is, but we come from an era when there was no iPhone, right? And somehow humans still figured it out. Now, if I know my kids are at school, my wife is at work, whatever, right? I can check my phone from time to time. If you want to get the most least productive day ever, put your phone right next to your laptop and start going to work. And I bet you money every 5 minutes, there'll be a notification from somewhere or a text message from somewhere that can put you down a rabbit hole for the next hour. So the first thing I say is you want to be focused, take away the distractions. The biggest distraction is your phone. The biggest one. Same thing when people say, I can't sleep. Oh, is your phone on? Oh, yeah, my phone's on. Why? You're home. Anything that's going to come up at 2 o'clock in the morning is an emergency. Someone's going to find a way to get in contact with you, right? Turn your phone off. You're doing this. You're scrolling the whole entire time. And then 3 hours later, like, oh, it's 3 a.m. I have to get up at 6. TikTok. So that's killer focus. Yeah, 100%. I got rid of my TikTok. I had TikTok for a couple of years. I just got rid of my TikTok. And people are like, why are you getting rid of it? Like, you have these followers and these likes. I was like, well, it's too much stuff. I only have a certain amount of bandwidth. I got a family. I've got all this. It's too much. I have Instagram. I have LinkedIn. I have Facebook. Facebook is for people that I know. Instagram is like 75 I know, 25% hey, welcome. And LinkedIn is people that could hire me or whatever. But I get hired, to be honest with you, I get hired more off Instagram than anything. Because people see the visual proof, right? People see what you're doing. Like, oh, Jeff just came back from Switzerland. I wonder if he'd speak here, right? And just a quick tip for anybody, when you're a speaker or coach, when people see you other places, it's very hard for them to lowball you in that initial conversation, right? Like if I know that Jeff has done gigs all over the world, I'm not going to say, hey, Jeff, could you coach me for $30 for 3 months, right? Like I'm going to realize like, no, this guy does this professionally.
Yeah, I recently heard a news report. Gosh, where was it? It might have been in Jersey. I'm not sure, but the school system in that town or in the city had decided, or they'd put forth, I think, a bill. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the government that said, no more phones in the schools. Your kids cannot bring their phones to school. And the parents were up in arms. And I'm going, why do kids have phone? How can you be in class and looking at your phone the whole time? I mean, it doesn't work. Whenever I do a training, I let whoever hired me, the president, the CEO, the VP of sales, either you're going to tell them to put their phones where I am because you're paying me a bunch of money to accomplish something for you. They're not going to get it if they're looking at their phones and they're on their laptops. It ain't going to work. People always, and I laugh at this. Oh, well, I can multitask. No, you can't. You think you can multitask, but it's been proven scientifically your brain can only focus on one thing at a time. And when you try to do more than one thing, both things suffer. I'm with you. Turn off the phone. And by the way, I love my phone. And I love social media, but there's a time and a place.
Same. Yeah, 100%.
Tell me a little bit about you and improv, because when I think about a professional speaker, maybe improv, but when I think about the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it doesn't quite track. Tell me about you and improv.
So improv for me, there's a place in New York called Upright Citizens Brigade. And it's, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler and all these people that went there. And it is exactly, Jeff, I want to say it's 3 blocks away from my jiu-jitsu school, right? The one in the city that I used to go to. So about, I don't know, it's got to be at least 7 years, 8 years now. I decided, my friend said, hey, do you want to come to my improv show? And I said, improv show. This is a guy I used to coach for college, and we just became really good friends. I was 25, my first coaching job. And I said, yeah, I'd love to come see. And the kid is hilarious. So I go to his improv show, and I don't get it. I'm like, what's happening? Like, the people coming on stage, and like, then the scene is to another scene, but he's phenomenal. And like, it's this whole big, I start realizing like this big teamwork thing. Like it's them creating this scene. And I said to myself, I said, you know what? I would like to, my buddy Chris was like, you should 100% do it. You should 100. And I'm like, huh. And I had that pit in my stomach, like, oh man, maybe I should. So I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I was like, I'm doing it. So I sign up. I go to my first improv class. And I have a gang of brothers and, friends. And I'm always used to saying the first funny thing. And that completely ruins improv. Like, completely destroys improv. Like, if we're setting a scene and Jeff, you're like, it's nice out. And I'm like, yeah, there's a unicorn in the sky, right? Scene over, dummy. Like, there's nothing. So I learned that improv is yes and, right? And it made me a better listener because now I have to really be in tune to my scene partner and really be in tune to the environment and where we are. Oh, Jeff said we're at a bus stop. I'm not going to talk about being at a circus, right? So I have to really pay attention. So I did the one-on-one course, and we do a show at the end, right? And so people came and watched the show, and the people at my first show I still I'm in contact with, right? And then I'm like, well, I have to do 201. Next thing you know, I'm doing 401 and graduate and do all that, and I'm like, I love it. And then when COVID happened, the UCB got shut down for a long time, but it just kind of went back, and now it's starting back up again. So I'm like, I would love to go back almost to the beginning and go through the whole entire process again, because it's, again, improv. Another thing about improv that I love is once you do a scene, it's never going to be there again. It's thrown away. So, I've done scenes that were horrible. Like I've been like, what the hell was that? But it's gone. No one cares, right? So improv it's a beautiful thing. I always tell people, if you want to become better at speaking a little bit quicker and become a better listener, take improv.
Yeah, if you're not going to listen, then improv is not right for you,
Yeah.
because it's all about how do I make my partner look good, as opposed to what it's a beautiful day out. No, it's raining. Well, you just ruined the scene right there. And you said the key, it's always yes. And it's how do you build from what your partner said or your partners. Mm-hmm. And if you're not paying attention, you're lost quickly. It's way harder than it looks. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And like I assume it takes a lot of practice.
I'm sorry. You know the show Severance?
Of course, love it.
So Dylan, Zach Chair, he was my improv teacher for a class.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So I was like, we and my wife watched Severance all, like, we're obsessed with the show. And I saw him. I go, Mo, I said that dude taught me at UCB. And I was like, now you see him here, and he's hilarious. So I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. But yeah, it's funny because you see, like, you're a stand-up comedian, so you see all these different people, but like all these improv instructors, guest instructors that we had, and my instructors, like, you'll see them pop up on random HBO comedies or random like shows here and there. And it's just, and they will go into our scenes. Like, we'd have a scene that's struggling, and they come into a scene and immediately make it better and funny. Like, without even, like, in a second, they immediately, because they're listening, they know what it is, and they're making everybody better around them. And then they step off.
Yeah. And people often lump the two in the same area, but improv and stand-up are two very different things. Very different things. Yeah. I love reading your inspirational posts, and you're very consistent with it. And I personally always, because I work on mindset with people, not just skills, I always suggest, you should have inspirational posts that are coming to you. Sign up for services that'll send you something in email every day. It's a great way to start out your day. And you recently suggested that we should never dim our light because others can't handle our shine. And it immediately made me think of the famous Marianne Williamson quote from A Course in Miracles. It's called Our Greatest Fear, where she says, "Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you." Why do we tend to play small, and how can we get past that?
Yeah. You look to your left and to your right, and you usually probably have people playing small next to you, right? So imagine if me and you hung out every single day. You don't play small. I don't play small. How would we ever play small? If you started playing small, I'd be like, Jeff, what are you doing, bro? Do you know who you are? If I start playing small, I'd be like, Cornell, what are you doing? But you look to your left, to your right. Usually you play small because the people around you play small, right? Or usually play small because you're still stuck in some ideal that you have to play small, or there's something stopping you from playing bigger. Nothing's freaking stopping you. We have the most least talented people in American history that are billionaires on the planet right now. No talent at all. And they're billionaires. What's stopping you from making all the things happen that you want? Well, it's just your mindset. You think that it's impossible for you to do things. I always tell people, if you think it's impossible, you're 100% correct. 100% right. Oh, you can't do it? 100%. I got to Dubai. The first time I spoke in Dubai was 2018. I was doing a book signing in California, and my buddy had an Airbnb, and he said, "You got to meet the lady that is at my Airbnb. She's awesome. She boxes. You guys have a lot in common. You should talk to her." I came in, we started talking. Her name was Sadis. We talked for an hour and a half. She lived in Abu Dhabi. It's the first time I was like, Abu Dhabi. I never met someone from Abu Dhabi before. Me and her talked for an hour and a half. She goes, contact my friend Omar. She goes, you guys are so similar. Next day I call Omar. He's from Dubai, has a lot of juice in Dubai. We talked for an hour. And we're calling each other brother by the end of the conversation. This is August. I tell him, I said, Omar, in October, before January, I'll be in Dubai speaking. He goes, how, brother? How are you going to get here? I said, just trust me. He takes a picture of my book, my first book, and all these people from the region start following me. And I'm looking at these people following me that are liking my posts, and one of them's an event planner. So I message her and say, hey, thanks a lot for liking my post. I said, you have any events coming up in Dubai? She goes, oh, my goodness, we have an event in October, but, we have our speakers. I was like, well, you don't have me yet. And she goes, okay, we're at your website. So she goes on my website. Long story short, by that night, I'm already on the website as one of their speakers. They're going to pay for my flight, my hotel, all this other stuff. And then I take the itinerary and I send it to Omar. And I said, I'll see you in October. Right. And it's like, then I saw him in person. It was like, meeting my brother. Right. And I had a great time. He got me on his radio shows and all this stuff, and an amazing time. It's like, I don't let anything stop me from going after what I want. The only thing that can stop me is death. That's it. And I was like, nothing else is going to stop me. So I'm not worried about what you think of me, because unless I'm being a malicious and harmful person, right? Or my mom says, or my wife says, or my kids say, hey, Dad, you're a real scumbag. Unless I hear that from them, I'm doing pretty good. And I wake up every day as an imperfect person trying to put a little light into the world. That's what I do every single day. So I'm damn what your thoughts are about me playing big, right? Hopefully it can inspire you to stop playing so small.
Nice. Love that. You also say that life is full of anchors and sails. What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Sails, not S-A-L-E-S, S-A-I-L-S, of course.
Yes. So the people around you are either going to drag you down or push you forward, right? So the sails push you forward, the anchors drag you down. And you have to take a really strong look at your circle and say, is this circle filled with squares? Is it filled with pieces that don't fit? And I don't think we do that enough. I don't think we look at our circle enough and say, hey, are these people really uplifting my life and impacting my life in a positive way? Or are these people dragging me down? That's why when people are dragged down, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not talking to so-and-so anymore. I feel like this big weight off my chest. Why is this big weight off your chest? Just because you're not talking to this person, or the person's on vacation, and you feel like, ooh, I can breathe. Well, that's an anchor, right? So ditch the anchor and go and move on, right? Do what you have to do. The problem is when the anchor is your family, right? When the anchor is your family, that's the biggest issue. And I get that conversation. It's like, well, I always say, do the Heisman. Some people you have to keep in arm's distance, right? You have to keep them at the end of that Heisman pose. You can't have them infiltrate your circle because of the negativity or the fact they're always going to need something from you. There are people, if I was into, coaching, et cetera, and I want to start out, when I was around Jeff Goldberg, I wouldn't be sitting there like, man, Jeff, show me this. I'd be like, hey, Jeff, what do I need to do? Do you have a course? Is there something that you do? Right? I want to get into, can I shadow you? I don't need you to give me a fish, right? I don't even need you to tell me step by step, but I'm going to get a mentor, right? A lot of people don't want mentors. They know everything already. No one knows everything, right? So I would get a Jeff Goldberg, like, okay, well, I would love for you to mentor me. You're a great guy. If I have the bandwidth, I have the time, no, 100%, no problem. I started a speaking program during COVID because I wasn't going out and speaking as much. And I didn't realize that online people were like, hey, Cornell, like, I want to get into speaking. I would love to have you mentor me and do, okay, great. So I put a program together and there we go.
So you're a very positive guy, and I am too. It seems like it makes no difference whether you watch Fox News or CNN. The news is almost all negative. And first of all, why does negativity sell? And the other thing is, do you have any advice for how do you stay up to date on what's going on without getting crushed? Because I don't want to listen to the news. It's horrible. And I don't care which side of the political aisle you're on. It's all horrible. But I do want to, I feel this need to, I got to know what's going on because there's too much crazy stuff going on. So how do we balance the need to stay informed with the need to keep our space positive?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say first is realizing that your brain works in a negativity bias. And that's why when someone says, hey, Jeff, I got $1 million for you, you're immediately going to say, where in the world is that $1 million from? Right? Immediately, right? You're going to question everything.
What's the catch?
What's the catch? You don't have $1 million for me, right? So our brain works in a negativity bias, and that's why we lean towards negativity. People call it, oh, it's like, I just want to see the train. It's like the train wreck, or why do you want to see a train wreck? Why do you want to see a car crash? Rubbernecking is when there's an accident on the side of the road and there's traffic because people are just looking at it.
Shoot me. I am the guy behind you leaning on the horn going, go. We've seen, first of all, it's on the other side of the expressway, and you've seen car crashes before. You've seen, it makes me nuts.
If you're not going out to help, just drive. And 99.99% of you aren't getting out of your car, just drive. No. So that's the first part, right? The second part is I would question what my definition of being informed is, because you can get informed, right? Informed, depending on your view system, right? You can get informed a lot of different ways. So if I have a certain leaning or predilection towards one side, if I lean left or I lean right or whatever, all I have to do is change the channel. So if that is the case, and if two different groups are trying to tell one story, right, or one story on one thing, now I have two different conflicting pieces on it. They don't agree on anything. So am I really being informed, or am I getting biased information? Yeah. My mom keeps the news on TV. My mom watches two things. She's 82 years old. She watches the news and Judge Judy, right? Those are the things they're playing at Tina Thomas's house. I'll be there Sunday. Either or, something will be on, right? Either the news or Judge. I wish it was Matlocks. I actually liked that show back in the day. But anyway, so I tell Mom, I'm like, Mom, why do you have the news on? Oh, baby boy, I don't watch. I just want to make sure that know what's going on. I said, Mom, it's 900 stories about death, murder, mayhem, right? And why you should vote this way or why this person's evil. And then at the end of it, they'll talk about a cat that was missing that someone found. So it's not even a cookie technique. It's like all death, all murder, all mayhem, all negativity, one positive story, then right back to death, murder, negativity. So I haven't watched the news personally in 8 years. No, 10 years, I'm sorry, in a decade. Why? Because they're back in the days when they had Sesame Street and they said, like, who are the people in your neighborhood, the people that you meet, the people that you greet each day? Yep. That's how I live my life. When I walk outside, right, they're my neighbors, the people that I see when I go to the store, people when I go here, people. And then we had all this drone stuff in New Jersey. People are going nuts. Oh my gosh, the drones. Oh my gosh, the drones. I'm like, I'm just going out of my house and going to the store. I'm going to take my kids to practice or I'm coming back. I don't give two craps about the drones. Why? It's not what I can control. 99% of the things that you see on TV, you can't control. You have no control over. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If a meteor is going to come down here and hit Earth, Jeff, guess what? Whether you watch it or not, it's going to hit. Right now, I got to get my affairs in order. No, you don't. The Earth's not going to be here. You don't have to get any affairs in order. You can just do your thing, right? So I don't watch the news just because I don't like people persuading me to go to their team and tell me how stupid everybody, generalize how everybody's dumb on this side or how everybody's wrong on this side. I'm good, bro. Like, you can keep it. I'll be informed by other medias or whatever. Like, I'll go somewhere else and get information. I have a lot of conversations. I travel a lot, so I can get informed that way. I have people that live in these places that people are talking about. I have people that live in the Middle East. I have people that live in Europe, live in Africa, live in Asia. I've been to Japan. Like, I have people that are all over the world. So if I want news, I can call up Nikkei and say, okay, what is actually going on in the Congo? Like what's happening here? What's happening here? And then I get a real first person account on what's happening, not some skewed bias information about what political party thinks of this story.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really tough one.
Hard,
I mean,
hard.
because there is so much going on, and again, I don't care which side of the political aisle anybody's on. I mean, I do care, but there's too much stuff, and it's happening too fast, and it does affect our lives. So
Sure.
I'm working on that one. Unfortunately, I could talk to you all day. That not unfortunately that, but we're actually out of time. So before we go, I want to share my screen. Could you tell people how to reach you in case they're interested in speaking with you or hiring you for a coach or being a speaker?
Sure. Well, CornellThomas.com is the website. All the information is on there. And then I'm on Instagram at Cornell Thomas 34, and LinkedIn Cornell Thomas, and my email is cornellthomas365@gmail. So any of those, I'm a very friendly person. Message me, I'll message you right back, and we'll have a conversation.
Well, Cornell, I really could talk to you all day, but we are out of time. So I will end by saying thank you so much for sharing your brilliance and your message of positivity so generously. And I will end as I always do. Gang, please remember that sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Cornell. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.